But next up, we have been testing a lot of different older emulators, but we're going to be checking out some other ones. So we have been seeing all kinds of handhelds and basic stuff, but in this part I want to do a little bit of an upscaling. Yep. So we have all kinds of new, let's say, systems. It has been released throughout the years on Batocera, but let's go, for example, with N64 and let's do a little bit of an upscaling, see how far we can push it. N64 will run a native resolution, but how far can we push it and all the other systems? So let's find out. But how does it actually work? We're going to be holding the A button. So if we're going to be into the N64 list, holding the A button now, then we're going to be having the advanced options. At the right over here, we get an extra menu, advanced game options. We have different kind of emulators that we can implement. But some of them we can even do a little bit of an upscaling. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So random resolution has been set to 720p. We're just going to be looking into different emulator, let's say options, and see how far we can push it. And I think we do have like some really cool things going on over here, thanks to the GPU that comes with the AMD. This may be better than the Intel one. We can find this with information in the system settings. So in the settings over here and the information, so we have an overview of the image, how much space we're having. The temperature is 30 Celsius at the moment, so that's quite good for a mini PC of this size. Normally they are like 40-50 Celsius, of course, depending what kind of brand. So we're running the AMD Ryzen 3 Pro 2200 GE, but we're having the Radeon Vega graphics. And that last part is going to be interesting because maybe now we can even do a little bit better upscaling than most of those Intel things that we have reviewed here on the channel. So let's get into it, but let's start off with some basic gaming. So first off, let's do a little bit of rendering resolution of 1920 by 4040, if I'm saying it correctly. So it's going to be some next level when it comes to that. See how far we can push it and do we have a stable frame rate. Because of course we can do a little bit tweaking, we can even do a little bit more upscaling, but also downscale everything. However, let's get into some gaming. So a native resolution, this runs on many different mini PCs nowadays, so that's absolutely awesome. But one of the more appealing things with this AMD mini PC that we do have like upscaling, and the 64 looks absolutely great. You can see that we have some minor stutters, but not to the point that it's going to be making this game unplayable. So Cruise USA is one of those test bench games that struggles on so many cheap game boxes. But let's go into some more gaming, because in this part I just want to do a little bit of an, let's say, different games on the same systems, because some of the games have like a slightly different overall result. I do see a little bit of stuttering going on left and right, the same with Cruise in the USA. But let's deep dive into some GoldenEye action. You can see it struggles, particularly in the beginning. But getting through the game, you see the game is just playable on these high resolutions. So if you want to have no, let's say, stuttering going on, what you can actually do is just like lower it in resolution, less quality, but we have like the better performance. So that's something you should, like, say, consider for yourself. Whoa, see, and that's exactly what I mean. So with this resolution of 920 by 4040 is absolutely pushing the device itself to a limit. We have been doing all kinds of, let's say, upscaling and different mini PCs. Normally we only have the options where we're having, let's say, Intel with a powerful GPU combined, and we're having the options. However, for this really old mini PC, for that amount of money you're paying for it, it's crazy. Let's move on to the N64DD. In other words, this is a system that has been, let's say, tested out on many, let's say, cheaper game boxes. But with this, we're going to be putting it on 4 times high quality resolution. We do have the same kind of result when it comes to, let's say, the performance. We do have some weird stuff going on with the, let's say, overall quality of, let's say, the details, but getting into the game, also here, and so far I've seen like the higher, like, say, overall upscaling we can do, but you can see also the same result with GoldenEye. I do have overall good emulation performance, where we do have like some minor hiccups. With the Dolphin emulator and some GameCube, I just want to do something completely crazy. Where this is a really old specification of a CPU-GPU combination, we're going to be trying some 4K rendering resolution. But you can just hear with Soul Calibur that it struggles big time. It is playable to a certain level, but you know, this is one of those great examples, dipping to 45 frames per second. So what you're going to be needing to do is just lower at everything, maybe make it on 2K, or if you have like a little bit of bad luck, you need to have 1080p. But if you're going to be looking into some more demanding stuff, then we're going to be needing, let's say, 1080p. So let's switch to another game and I'll give you an example what I exactly mean with this. A great example is going to be testing out F-Zero GX. By the way, one of my favorite games to test out and also to play actually on my GameCube. So now we're going to be putting it on 1080p rendering resolution. Try 2K or 4040p and stuff like that, doesn't work at all. And we didn't have like overall great performance. However, 1080p upscaled F-Zero GX on this old PC seems to be running just fine. So let's get into the game, let's skip the intro. And I think it's absolutely an overall amazing performance, having even upscaling options with such an, let's say, low-powered, old-school mini PC. Where I am just Team Intel when it comes to play, say, having a CPU in beside me to see, I'm always like flabbergasted how good AMD Ryzen is. Even with this prehistoric version, the performance is crazy. If you're looking at the price you're paying for these mini PCs, and having the option to do so many cool things. 1080p F-Zero GX, this meaning if you're going to have maybe a two-dimensional game, you can maybe do a little bit of 2K or maybe even 4K rendering resolution. But of course, you need to look into it yourself, do a little bit of tweaking for your favorite game to get the overall best performance out of this machine. But let's get into the PlayStation part. So start off with some PlayStation 1. And what I love about this machine, that we do have the option for 4K rendering resolution, making this PlayStation 1 game through the dock station looking amazing. And I think that is one of those really appealing things. If you're a big fan of the PlayStation 1 games, and you want to experience those old games in a 4K rendering resolution, you can actually do that in such a low budget, cheap way. So what you can also do is getting into, let's say, higher settings if you just want to tinker with it. Same story, like I told you a couple of times now, is that depending on what kind of game you want to play, maybe the two-dimensional game is even less demanding and we can have it higher than 4K. But so far this looks just great. And that's one of the more appealing things when it comes to a PC. And then we can do it with a low budget product like this particular old school AMD Ryzen. And this makes me personally really exciting. Moving on to the PlayStation 2, we have great performance with 1080p rendering resolution. And yep, you can do tweaking here and there, but I am quite satisfied with such an overall good performance with a Tekken 5. The game has never been looked so great, and then for such a low-powered mini PC. And that, I think it has to do thanks to the GPU, because this gives us so many cool new upscaling options. Dolphin, but also the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 and many other systems.
Round 2. Fight.
But let's try another game, a two-dimensional fighting game, and yep, we're having over here 4K rendering resolution with PlayStation. So I had the option to do this with Tekken, but I didn't want to do this because I know the two-dimensional stuff is less demanding. But you can see full 4K render resolution, great performance on this mini PC. And that's what I exactly mean. We need to do tweaking and tweak your favorite game to a certain level that makes it still playable and look amazing. But how about PlayStation 3? I think if you're going to be having these low budget or very old, say mini PCs, some of them have the option to actually play. But let's start about the loading times. Because due of the course we're having over here, it takes sometimes forever to load up a couple of games. So in this case, I'm going to grab myself something to drink. And after a couple of times of trying to boot up the game, because in the loading it just froze up. But let's get into the gaming and let's see how the overall gameplay will be. But the overall emulation performance is surprisingly good. However, we do have very long loading times getting into the games, of course depending how big the game is itself. But with this game, yeah, we did have a little bit of a problem with that. However, in the game everything loads fast. But when it comes to, let's say, playing and just want to have overall better experience in PlayStation 3, you need to take consideration to get a more powerful PC itself. I've been trying on many different AMD Ryzen ones, And yeah, with more cores and more threads, we have like overall so many better performance. But of course, with a low power device like this, it's just amazing that we can actually even play PlayStation 3 now. And it makes this mini PC, beside the overall upscaling, very cool. Point out that we're just using the original native resolution now, as this was intended to play on the PlayStation. No weird cool things added to it, because I think this is the maximum we can expect from such a low power device. PlayStation Portable with some crazy 4K resolution with just a basic game. Like I mentioned before, it's always a little bit of a hit or miss with these. So there are so many different games. So if you're having a God of War, there we're going to be needing a completely different setup than this particular game. But getting into some 4K rendering resolution with this awesome game, this works perfectly. Oh, I messed it up. Another game like Pac-Man, 10 times resolution. It's all possible, but again, what I mentioned before, we just need to do a little bit of tweaking with every single game. But how about when we're going to be playing a normal three-dimensional game? I've been messing with the settings quite a long time now, and I did notice with 1080p resolution we can actually play this no problem whatsoever. You need to do auto skipping to auto, otherwise it's going to be running absolutely horrible. So we need to do a lot of tweaking, but rendering resolution seems to be running as it is now just fine. And again, you can do a little bit of tweaking, maybe getting a little bit higher resolution, but it's kind of cool to see that we can have upscaling possible with this awesome retro game, because Need for Speed Rivals, oh man, yeah. So where Die Hard is actually a quite difficult one to play and emulate, we can do it on this mini PC without any problem whatsoever. So if Die Hard Trilogy works, there are many games that will run just fine. And think about if you're going to be using a two-dimensional game, that will be maybe have the option, if it's possible in emulator, we can even do it a little bit, maybe an upscaling to higher resolutions. But the Sega Saturn runs absolutely awesome through the Yamaha Zero emulator. So we had 4K rendering resolution with the Sega Saturn, but how about when it comes to the Sega Dreamcast? So let's push this thing. We see some dips now at this moment, but let's get into the gameplay and see how the overall gameplay is. Already has some dips, 40 over here. Ooh. But this is just fun to experiment with it. Where 4K Dreamcast, it's just too much. So we need to do a little bit of a lowering of the resolution. Okay, so it's clear that we can't do 4K with the Sega Dreamcast. Let's get into the Dead Alive and let's put it on 1080p. That's just a safe way to go to. Again, we can also do a little bit of a tweaking there, but I think it's just fine. 1080p, I can live with it. It looks amazing. Minor hiccup, but not with the explosion. But when it comes to the Elite Desk from HP, this is just a very nice, cheap solution to play games. Particularly when it comes to a newer generation of modern games, upscaling, you can do it. Plug and play with an Xbox controller, but there are many different solutions out there. Besides that, I'm very pleased with the overall result. And I think this is going to be maybe one of my favorite ones to actually play when it comes to a low budget solution. Let me know in the comments what you think of the AMD one, would you consider buying it, and it would be great just to see you for more testing on the channel, and see you in the next video.